स्वहतसवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste, dear friends. I am giving you a very important video. Swami Annamalai quotes on self-inquiry meditation. These are the very good hints for those who are treading the path of self-inquiry, and this will help them in their meditation, and some basic doubts will be cleared. So people, the sadhakas who are in the process of self-inquiry meditation, they must watch this video to clarify their doubts. So I start the video. If you can be continuously aware of each thought as it arises, and if you can be so indifferent to it so that it doesn't sprout or flourishes, you are well on your way to escape from the entanglement of the mind. This is the same thing as self-attention and self-awareness. When you are aware of yourself, the thoughts will not interfere, or rather, arising of the thoughts from the self will be stopped. They will cease to arise and disturb. So that is a very good point. Be aware of yourself. Put efforts on the self-attention and concentrate on self-awareness and self-attention. So this will reduce the arising of thoughts. And that way the mind will be weakened. The mind will become weak, and after some time the mind will become quieter. Now Annamalai Swami further says, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi has said, when thoughts arise, stop them from developing by inquiring, to whom is this thought coming? As soon as the thought appears, what does it matter if many thoughts keep coming up? Inquire into their origin or find out who has the thoughts, and sooner or later the flow of thoughts will stop. This is how self-inquiry should be practiced. So some people, they are under a wrong impression that self-inquiry is just repeating the, who am I, like a mantra. But no, that is not the correct way. Instead of repeating who am I as a mantra, just concentrate on the self-awareness and self-attention. Thereby, the arising of thoughts will be ceased. And after good practice, the arising of these thoughts will be completely ceased, and mind will become quiet. When Bhagwan spoke like this, he sometimes used the analogy of a besieged fort. If one systematically loses of all the entrances to such a fort and then picks off the occupants one by one as they try to come out, sooner or later the fort will be empty. So, good analogy. It is like that, whenever some thought arises from the soul, just ignore it and concentrate on the soul, Atma. So, this is the best way. Bhagwan said that we should apply these same tactics to the mind. How to go about doing this? Seal off the entrances and exits to the mind by not reacting to rising thoughts or sense impressions. Do not let new ideas, judgments, likes, dislikes, etc. enter the mind, and don't let rising thoughts flourish and escape your attention. When you have sealed off the mind in this way, challenge each emerging thought as it appears by asking, where have you come from? Or who is the person who is having this thought? If you can do this continuously with full attention, new thoughts will appear momentarily and then disappear. If you can maintain the siege for long enough, a time will come when no more thoughts arise. Or if they do, they will only be fleeting, undistracting images on the periphery of consciousness. In that thought free state, you will begin to experience yourself as consciousness, not as mind or the body. However, if you relax your vigilance even for a few seconds and allow new thoughts to escape and develop unchallenged, the siege will be lifted and mind will regain some or all of its former strength. If you can maintain this siege for long enough, a time will come when no more thoughts arise. However, if you relax your vigilance even for a few seconds and allow new thoughts to escape and develop unchallenged, the siege will be lifted and the mind will regain some or all of its former strength. In a real fort, the occupants need a continuous supply of food and water to hold out during a siege. When the supplies run out, the occupants must surrender or die. In the fort of the mind, the occupants, which are thoughts, need a thinker to pay attention to them and indulge in them. Here, thoughts are the soldiers of the enemy, and the ego is the thinker. If this ego and thoughts are separated, this ego is directed towards the soul, so there is no thinker. That means the thoughts will, their frequency will be very, very less, and finally they will be stopped. If the thinker withholds his attention from rising thoughts or challenges them before they have a chance to develop, the thoughts will all die of starvation. You challenge them by repeatedly asking yourself, who am I? Who is the person who is having these thoughts? If the challenge is to be effective, you must make it before the rising thought has had a chance to develop into a stream of thoughts. Here, this who am I? Who am I? Who is what? This who am I? I is here the ego. Who is the query? Am is the existence. So, ego. The question is put to ego, not to the real self. Mind is only a collection of thoughts, and the thinker who thinks them. This ego is the modification of mind. Remember, ego is the modification of mind. This see, intellect, ego, all these are modifications of the mind. The thinker is the I thought. Who is this I thought? I thought is the ego. The thinker is the I thought, the primal thought, which rises from the self before all others, which identifies with all other thoughts and says, I am this body. When you have eradicated all thoughts except for the thinker himself, by ceaseless enquiry, by refusing to give them any attention, the I thought sinks into the heart and surrenders, leaving behind it only an awareness of the consciousness. The gist of this paragraph is here ego is compelled to go back its source, that is our soul, which resides in the spiritual heart. Simple thing. So I thought that is the basic thought, and that is the ego. This is false I. The real I is our Atma, and false I is the basic thought. That is I thought. That is ego. This surrender will only take place when the I thought has ceased to identify with the rising thoughts. While there are still stray thoughts which attract or evade your attention, the I thought will always be directing its attention outwards rather than inwards. The purpose of self-inquiry is to make the I thought move inwards towards the self. This will happen automatically as soon as you cease to be interested in any of your rising thoughts. Here, the gist of this paragraph is that your ego will be directed to the Atma, and there will not be any attendant to the rising thoughts. So, ego will cease to exist and thoughts will cease to rise from the Atma, and the mind will be quietened. So, source from book Living by the Words of Bhagwan, page 272 to 73. This book is written by David Goldman and it contains wonderful account of Annamalai Swami's life with Ramana Maharshi. Stories of how Ramana ashram was constructed. Annamalai Swami answers to meditation questions of seekers. If you are having trouble with your enthusiasm for sadhana, just tell yourself, I may be dead in 7 days. Let go of all the things that you pretend are important in your daily life and instead focus on the self for 24 hours a day. Do it and see what happens. Annamalai Swami's ideas are wonderful, very practical, very simple, basic ideas. Remember that nothing that happens in the mind is you, and none of it is your business. You don't have to worry about the thoughts that rise up inside you. It is enough that you remember that the thoughts are not you. You means Atma here. See, each and every word is very, 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 important to understand. Go deeply into this feeling of I. Be aware of it so strongly and so intensely that no other thoughts have the energy to arise and distract you. If you hold this feeling of I long enough and strongly enough, the false I will vanish, leaving only the unbroken awareness of the real immanent consciousness itself. What is this immanent consciousness? That is our Atma. And this false I is what? Ego. Continuous attentiveness will only come with long practice. If you are truly watchful, each thought will dissolve at the moment that it appears. But to reach this level of disassociation, you must have no attachments at all. If you have the slightest interest in any particular thought, it will evade your attentiveness, connect with other thoughts, and take over your mind for a few seconds. This will happen more easily if you are accustomed to reacting emotionally to a particular thought. Self inquiry must be done continuously. It doesn't work if you regard it as a part time activity. What is this self inquiry? Continuously be attentive, be aware of yourself. That is, I am the Atma. I am the self. I am the self. Concentrate on this thought. I am Atma. I am the self. This awareness and self attention continuously is known as a self inquiry. My dear friends, do not fall victim of, just thought process. What is this self inquiry? This self inquiry is nothing but yeah. This self inquiry is self attention, self awareness. In simple words, thought that I am the self. This is called self attention. This is called self attentiveness. This is called abiding in the self. And this is self inquiry. Sadhana is a battlefield. Battle between what? Battle between the rising thoughts, ego, mind, and the real self. You have to be vigilant. Do not take delivery of wrong beliefs and do not identify with the incoming thoughts that will give you pain and suffering. But if these things start happening to you, fight back by affirming, I am the self. I am the self. I am the self. These affirmations will lessen the power of the I am the body arrows, and eventually they will armor plate you so successfully. The I am the body thoughts that come your way will no longer have the power to touch you, affect you, or make you suffer. If you can hold on to this knowledge, I am the self at all times, no further practice is necessary, dear friends. Self inquiry is nothing but self awareness of what? Self awareness that I am the self. This is the self inquiry. People read articles, people read books, and then finally they, what is this self inquiry? After reading so many articles, listening so many discourses, reading so many good books and all, finally they are where from they started. What is this self inquiry? So the simple answer is self awareness, self attention on the contemplation of a beautiful thought. I am the self. That's simple. This is the gist of the whole knowledge about self inquiry. I've seen, people they write books and find where they are leading to us. They are leading us. No destination, nothing. Right on, good English, good. What is that? Arey bhaiya. Tell the truth in simple words. Why technical words and people, they are completely frustrated. They stop. I have seen people. They read books, 400, 300 pages. And, after finishing the book, Arey, what is this self-inquiry? How it is to be? How to progress? How to start? Sorry. This is the problem. Technical words, completely ambiguity. People are always in doubt, and doubts, they are blocks on the path of self inquiry. If you can hold on to this knowledge, I am self at all times, no further practice is necessary. What a wonderful sentence. There is nothing wrong with looking at Bhagwan's picture. It's a very good practice, but you should not get a side track from your main objective, which is establishing yourself as consciousness. Don't get attached to states of bliss or give them priority over the quest for the self. See, sometime while doing meditation, you feel some places of bliss, some places of tranquility. Do not attach yourself. Carry on doing your practice. Do not stop. There are so many thoughts in the mind, thought after thought after thought, but there is one thought that is continuous, though it is mostly subconscious. I am the body. This is the string on which all other thoughts are threaded. Once we identify ourselves with the body by thinking this thought, Maya follows. It also follows that if we cease to identify with the body, Maya will not affect us anymore. See, I am the body is the basic thought. This basic thought is known as the ego. And remember, this is a very, very subtle thought. We are not aware of this thought, but it is there. It is, it is the basic thought. Rest all other thoughts follow this basic thought. So, this ego is really very dangerous for the sadhakas. This is very, you know, deceitful. It is very subtle. This creates the string of thoughts. This creates the chain of thoughts. So, when the rejection of mental activities become continuously and automatic, you will begin to have the experience of the self. How how the experience of self will look like that, because self is the bliss, self is the natural tranquility, state of bliss and state of tranquility. When you feel the you are very very happy, you know some basic flow of prana is through, Ida and Pingla nadis, and when the flow of thoughts and prana is through the Susmana, that time you feel the flashes of this bliss and tranquility. Because Susmana is the nerve, most important nerve in our body, because Kundalini Shakti rises through this nerve, that is Sushmana Nadi. A strong determination to pursue inquiry in this way will dissolve all doubts. By questioning who am I, and by constantly meditating, one comes to the clarity of being. This being is also Atma, remember. That is the Satta Chitta Ananda. As long as vasanas continue to exist, they will rise and cover the reality, obscuring awareness of it as often as you become aware of them. Question: to whom do they come? This continuous inquiry will establish you in your own self, and you will have no further problem. When you know that the snake of the mind never existed, when you know that the rope of reality is all that exists, doubts and fears will not trouble you again. I have given one video on vasanas. I will give one or two more videos on these vasanas because they are the trouble creator. They are the stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization, because these vasanas, they cause the thoughts from interior core of our heart, and our ego pulls outside these thoughts. So vasanas push, push these thoughts from the interior of our heart, and ego pulls these thoughts outward. This is the basic thing. Something is pushed and another thing is pulling. That mean thoughts, they come out with a strong force, because there is push and there is pull. Pull and push accelerate the speed of rising of thoughts. Very simple these things, but you have to understand. Meditation must be continuous. The current of meditation must be present in all your activities. With practice, meditation and work can go on simultaneously. One must keep one's attention on the self if one wants to make progress on the spiritual path. Whether you are working or whatever you are doing, just be aware of that I am the Atma. This thought will help you. That will become your self-inquiry. The thoughts that come and go are not you. Whatever comes and goes is not you. Your reality is peace. If you don't forget that, that will be enough. What is your reality? Your reality is bliss. Your reality is peace. Bhagwan's famous instruction, Summa Iru, be still, is often misunderstood. The be still means people think that stop talking. No, stop rising of thoughts is the actual still. Being still means just stop the force the thoughts not to come out. Stop the arising of thoughts. This is called stillness. It does not mean that you should be physically still. It means that you should always abide in the self. When you are abiding in the self means automatically the thoughts will cease to rise. In Sattva Guna, a state of mental quietness and clarity, there is stillness and harmony. If mental activity is necessary while one is in Sattva Guna, it takes place, but for the rest of the time there is stillness. If Sattva Guna predominates, one experiences peace, bliss, clarity, and an absence of wandering thoughts. That is the stillness that Bhagwan was prescribing. In simple words, ceasing the thoughts to come out of the Atma is known as being still. Simple. Bhagwan is always present inside you and in front of you. If you don't cover the vision of Bhagwan with your ego, that will be enough. The ego is the I am the body. That is the basic thought. False I. Remove this idea and you shine as the self. When I say meditate on the self, I am asking you to be the self, not think about it. Be aware of what remains when thoughts stop. Be aware of the consciousness that is the origin of all your thoughts. Be that consciousness. In the same way, mind is just a self-inflicted area of darkness in which the light of the self has been deliberately shut out. See, this consciousness is Atma only. Do not start thinking what is this consciousness is Atma. Consciousness is soul. The mind and the body are both inert. Body doesn't have any life. Mind also doesn't have any life. Any energy or peace you experience can only come from the self. Drop the identification with the body. These experiences are making you too body conscious. Just be aware of the self and try to pay as little attention as possible to the body. The self is pure energy, pure power. Hold on to that. If you can give up duality, Brahma alone remains, and you know yourself to be that Brahma. But to make this discovery, continuous meditation is required. Don't allocate periods of time for this. Don't regard it as something you do when you sit with your eyes closed. This meditation has to be continuous. Do it while eating, walking, and even talking. It has to be continued all but this dual word, thinking that Atma and Paramatma are different. This is duality. And what is then Advaita? Paramatma and Atma are the same. This is Advaita. And duality, Atma is separate, Paramatma is separate. So remember that nothing that happens in the mind is you, and none of it is your business. You don't have to worry about the thoughts that rise up inside you. It is enough that you remember that the thoughts are not you. Manuvar, a Tamil saint whom Bhagwan often quoted, wrote in one of his poems, "My Guru merely told me that I am consciousness, means I am Atma." Having heard this, I held on to consciousness. That means he was always self aware about the Atma. What he told me was just one sentence, but I cannot describe the bliss I attained from holding on to that one simple sentence. Through that one sentence, I attained a peace and a happiness that can never be explained in words. In every moment, you only have one real choice: to be aware of the self or to identify with the body and the mind. You have to keep up the enquiry. To whom is this happening? All the time. If you are having trouble, remind yourself this is just happening on the surface of my mind. I am not this mind or the wandering thoughts. Then go back into inquiry: who am I? By doing this, you will penetrate deeper and deeper and become detached from the mind. This will only come about after you have made an intense effort. Your ultimate need is to get established in the changeless peace of the self. For this, you have to give up all thoughts. So, some questions are answered by Annamalai Swami. Question is, People who follow other paths sometimes experience samadhi states. Will they also have the experience of Sapurna, a light experience which can come before the samadhi experience? Annamalai Swami replied, if one unceasingly follows the path of japa or yoga, the mind will merge eventually in the Sapurna. At the time of merging, the experience will come. This Purna is the light or the radiance of the I am. When you are close to merging with the real I, you feel its emanations. This real I is the real name and form of God. The first and most accurate name of God is I. The awareness I am is the original and primordial mantra. I am. Am is existence. I is Atma. Sat Chit Anand. Things are so simple, but people they have made these things, written books, big books. Uh, Not required at all. Question. So the I mantra is even prior to Paranava, the sound of Om. Because I means what? Atma. Atma and Paramatma same. Om is what? Brahma, Paramatma. So I, Om, Brahma, Paramatma, what same thing. There is no problem. So when we say I, real I, not ego, that means Brahma. I am Brahma. I am God. So answer. Yes, that is what Bhagwan said on several occasions. This consciousness, the I am is existing and shining always, but your awareness of it is obstructed by the ego. In just the same way that the shadow of the earth hides the moon during an eclipse, the shadow over the moon is only visible because of the moonlight behind it. Without this light, the shadow of the eclipse could not be seen like this. We are conscious of the body, the mind, and the world even when they obstruct our clear vision only because of the light of the self. By the light of the self, all this is seen. Question. How did this single unbroken I become the many different things and people that we see in the world? Namlai Swami replies, it did not. It always remains single and unbroken. Your defective vision and your misperceptions give you the impression that the one became the many. The self has never undergone any change or transformation except in your imagination. When we identify ourselves with the body, the mind, the one appear to become many. When one's energy is diverted from the mind and the outside world toward the self, the illusion of multiplicity fades away. Go deeply into this feeling of I, be aware of it so strongly and so intensely that no other thoughts have the energy to arise and distract you. If you hold this feeling of I long enough and strongly enough, the false I will vanish, leaving only the unbroken awareness of the real immanent I consciousness itself. Wonderful. Bhagwan once said to me, Annamalai Swami says, the one who limits the self by believing himself to be the body and the mind has killed his own self. For killing the self, he has to be punished. The punishment is birth and death and continuous misery. Question. Is the ending of misery determined by prarabdha karma or can we bring it nearer by personal effort? And Amla Swami replies, the misery comes to an end only by realizing the self, not by any other means. Question. Can this happen at any time? Annamalai Swami replies, here and now you are already the self. You don't need time to realize it. All you need is correct understanding. Each moment you identify yourself with the body and the mind, you are going in the direction of ego and misery. The moment you give up that identification, you are moving towards your real self, towards happiness. Question. If I try to generate this feeling, I am the self, it will not be the real thing, it will be just another idea in the mind. Can thinking about this idea really help me? Annamalai Swami replies, when I say meditate on the self, I am asking you to be the self, not think about it. Be aware of what you remains when thoughts stop. Be aware of the consciousness that is the origin of all your thoughts. Atma is the source of thoughts. Be that consciousness. Feel that this is what you really are. If you do this, if you do this, you are meditating on the self. But if you cannot stabilize in that consciousness because your vasanas are too strong and too active, it is beneficial to hold on to the thought, I am the self, I am everything. If you meditate in this way, you will not be cooperating with the vasanas that are blocking your self awareness. You don't cooperate with them, sooner or later they are bound to leave you. If this method doesn't appeal to you, then just watch the mind with full attention. Whenever the mind wanders, become aware of it, see how thoughts connect with each other, and watch how this ghost called mind catches hold of all your thoughts, saying, this is my thought. Watch the ways of the mind without identifying with them in any way. If you give your mind your full detached attention, you begin to understand the futility of all mental activities. Was the mind wandering here and there, seeking out useless and unnecessary things or ideas which will ultimately only create misery for itself? Watching the mind gives us a knowledge of its inner process. It gives us an incentive to stay detached from all our thoughts. Ultimately, if we try hard enough, it gives us the ability to remain as consciousness unaffected by transient thoughts. Annamalai Swami's thoughts are really wonder. He has understood the, you know, Brahma Gyan and Atam Gyan so deeply that every sentence he uttered, it was so clear. A layman can understand. So, thank you for listening, watching this video. Please, please, please subscribe my channel, my dear friends. I will give you wonderful videos. I will completely reveal the Brahmagyan. I will give you the most important videos you are waiting for. Thank you. Thank you. Namaste. Namaste. Om Shanti. 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 Shanti.